What am I doing? It's been a road. Hi there, it's Timmy Joe, famous internet computer guy, and I've got an air conditioner. I've got a computer. I've got a bucket filled with propylene glycol. Heck, there's even an industrial pump over here. Check this out. Yeah, you'll want to stay tuned for this episode. But before we get there, I want to thank Gamdias and their Talos E1 case for sponsoring this video. Otherwise, I couldn't have done it because I had to buy like a couple $100s worth of stuff here, and it's really not working out so well. So thanks, Gamdias. Talos E1 case, it's an MATX case or ITX case with a small form factor. It's got a lot of good airflow, 2 tempered glass panels. You can put up to five fans in it. It's pretty crazy. Plus their Kratos power supply lights up RGB as well. So if you mix that with their Aeolus fans, you can have them all kind of talk to each other, light up the same kind of lights, and it looks really good too. So check out links in the description to check out the Talos E1. I'm actually using it for my home theater PC right now, and I love looking at the little thing. It is a pretty cool little computer. So I will see you guys after the intro, and we're gonna just go through how much terrible times I've had with this and how it's a couple days later and it's not an ideal situation whatsoever.
Timmy Joe reviews anything.
Reviewing computer parts on YouTube.
That's
Woo! Gotta be pumped on that, right, Will? Computer parts! Woo!
Oh yeah.
Oh my god, this guy just scared the ever-living out of me. Well, that's not gonna work. Cool. Yep, this has been just an entirely huge nightmare. Yep, this whole thing.
One eternity later.
Even with the freaking high-end pump, I can't get it. Is it because needs to be higher? No, this is as far as I've come. Sounds like the pump's gonna die. There's no reason. No reason. Let's talk about my blunder, and maybe you guys can help out because I'm out of ideas. And somebody else has done this exact thing before and showed it working on his channel around the time Threadripper launched. And I'm doing pretty much all the same stuff here, minus I'm not using windshield washing fluid, which I thought was dumb because it's got detergent in it, which would suds up and stuff. I'm using this. So I see this, I buy this. This is waterproof water system antifreeze. Total water system protection, safe for plastic and metal pipes with corrosion inhibitors, lubricates water lines, pipes, and seals. So I thought lubricates, that's good because pumps need lubrication. But it straight up says on the back here, this product is not designed as a heat transfer fluid for closed loop systems or as antifreeze for internal combustion engines. So there's probably something I should know, right? So I get this all working, and then I start using pumps like this and this. I started with this one, it wasn't working. I know this one goes up to 4,000 RPM. I thought maybe I could get this thing to work, and I could use the reservoir to like prime the system because you have to basically get some fluid going to get this stuff working. I'm thinking it's the fluid that's wrong. So I might, before the end of this video, go buy some like literal antifreeze for a car and see if that works, or maybe the windshield washing fluid because that's cheap. I don't know. Anyways, so I get this all set up with one of these appropriate pumps. And once I prime the system, it just trickles, especially once you put the air conditioner on and start getting things cold. And I picked that because it's minus 50 capable, and I want to get the fluid really cold. I want to get it sub-zero, right? So we can't use water, and which is what this is normally meant for. And I guess we could use like actual coolant that's meant for water, like loop systems, like for computers, but that's not something I can just go out and buy. I'd have to order it, and to order enough to fill up that thing, I'd have to spend $100 to do that. So instead, once this wasn't working, I tried several times to organize the loop. I shortened the loop. I thought maybe it was too long. I went out to my local Canadian Tire, and I bought this incredibly loud pump that straight up says pump for water on it. Do not use for anything but water. And it worked for about 5 minutes, and it was flowing pretty good. As soon as the fluid got cold, it stopped flowing, as you saw there. It stops flowing.
A few moments later.
In a desperate attempt to try and get this working one last time, I took the block apart, and this was in there. Oh man, it's working. Like, you can see the flow in there now. Look, you can see the flow, and before there was nothing going through here, even though both pumps were on. I was like, it should be working. What's going on?
A few moments later.
Alrighty, check this out. Look at these temperatures. All below zero. Let's run Cinebench. Oh, it's getting better. This used to get up to the 65 or 70. It's getting colder. Look at my frequency. I've never ever ran this 7820X at anywhere past 4.8 gigahertz without it spiking to 100 degrees. And we are now achieving Ryzen 3700X performance at 5 gigahertz. I mean, I can get actually over 2200 easy on the Ryzen 3700X. So the 7820X is a pretty shitty processor. It actually ends up being faster in games somehow, something to do with Intel. That might not even be the truth anymore now that there's been some Magiza updates and stuff like that. So, come over here. We saw zero. What is the temperature of the fluid? Let's check it out. I put this in here, and our fluid is at minus 10 right now. I mean, that's reasonable flow considering what's going on. I never had flow like this before. So how did I solve my issue? I went over to my local Canadian Tire, and I went in the car section, found a fuel filter that fit my hose end that looked reasonable, and I picked that up, and that has what solved the issue. Because every time I opened up the block, there was some degree of debris from that crappy rad. I'm sticking 2 years worth of air conditioner rust and oxidization and little foam that surrounds the thing that I stupidly never took off. Like, why wouldn't I do that? So all that's floating around, and I thought that would all float to the top, so I shouldn't have problems if I put everything near the bottom. No, it just jams up the loop. It gets bad, and putting that fuel filter in line, who knows? Fuel filters aren't supposed to be running glycol through them, so I don't know how long it's going to last, how long it's going to take to plug up. While it's working, we're going to get some results, though. We saw 5 gigahertz. I'm going to see if I can't go further than that. But essentially, yeah, actually, planning ahead would have very much improved the situation and not wasted 2 days of production work for a video that probably won't even do that well. Anyways, so let's actually see how far we can take my 7820X with the homemade chiller. And I'm so excited that we actually got it working and that I have a degree of flow, a better pump, or I had 2 pumps hooked up to this a couple of times. Maybe that with the fuel filter in the way, maybe that would actually end up being better for, like, I'm going up 60 degrees there easy from idle to load temp. But the 7820X is like one of the hottest CPUs I've ever played with. You can only imagine how bad like a 7900 or a 7820XE is to keep cool at any sort of frequencies above like 4.5. Because this thing just gets absolutely, it compounds every 100 megahertz. It goes up like 20 degrees that you have to take care of. And how I've dealt with it at 4.82 gigahertz is I have liquid metal on it. I'd have to put liquid metal on the pump on the IHS and from the die to the IHS to get the amount of, to get 4.8 gigahertz with this thing. So I'm gonna play with this a little bit and we'll see if we can't get some final results going on. All right, so it's running at pretty much peak efficiency over there, and I've settled up on 5.2 gigahertz. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem to be getting cold enough to go much higher. As this X299, this 7 series or Extreme, Edition processors, or X processors, kind of get way too hot to go much further beyond that. So I'm running Cinebench. I already have Cinebench R20 ran, so Cinebench stable for these matters. And as we'll see when we run the final Cinebench test here, just kind of I have some theories on where everything kind of lands here. But I definitely want to say that this was a very ghetto setup, and I need to improve this whole situation. Number one, I need to find a better pump. I think some sort of industrial fish tank pump or something that pumps like a certain, a guaranteed volume, like 1,000 gallons per hour or something like that. Or maybe just increase the diameter of my pumps, but I'd rather maybe clean these up as they're still working right now and stop running fluids that aren't meant to be going through them. I might want to use my pumps at some point in an actual loop, as crazy as that sounds. Anyways, so I need to figure out a pump situation, bigger diameter on all my my hoses, and definitely figure out some sort of filtration system that's not just a fuel filter, or I don't know, it seems to be working all right, but maybe a larger diameter fuel filter. It didn't seem to impede much once I put it on there, so that's pretty good. And glad I got something working for today, and it's been working pretty beautifully ever since. The coldest it seems I can get the water while the computer's on is about -12, and a big problem I think is that if you look here, the whole rad's not submerged, and I need to find a different receptacle for it so that I can actually submerge the entire rad. There's some bending of the tubes and stuff I need to kind of work out on that as well, so that I'd rather have less fluid in there, but the whole rad covered. And this little crappy, cooler that I actually just had on hand has been serving the purpose pretty well. As far as perfecting this anytime soon, I'm not sure, but one thing I definitely need to do is get rid of this fluid. Just get right rid of it. Maybe try something different. There's got to be a better fluid. So there's our single threaded situation. And here, we'll run Cinebench and watch these temperatures. They go from 0 up to 90. There's my other point. The fluid, I believe, is just not thin enough to be allowing for a good enough transfer of the heat from that block through those microfins. There's got probably, it seems like it goes all the way up to 90. Here we go, 2200. All the way up to 90 degrees, 95 degrees, and then it goes back down to like 80, 85. It seems like there's some gelling a little bit, and once the heat is there, it allows for a little bit better flow, and the temperatures go from 90, 95 back down to 85 for the remainder of the Cinebench run. So it seems like a better fluid, maybe the washer fluid will be better. I definitely need to get insulation for all of my tubing. I definitely should probably look into some way to properly insulate the motherboard if I'm going to be running this for any length of time. You know, some insulation will definitely be important. So let's check out our final scores here. We see here we bumped up to 5.256 gigahertz on some of these cores. Well, higher even, which is pretty good. That's probably to do, like, I don't have the base clock up on there. It's just probably to do with the initial temperature. It actually allows it to go a little bit higher. But these are pretty terrible Cinebench scores, in my opinion. That single-threaded score is not so great. That's for sure. We pop up to Cinebench R20. Getting 5400 is kind of respectable. I think the 3700X will do 500 single-core score in Cinebench. So definitely something going on there. But, I mean, for minus 12 is what the fluid's getting to. And I assumed I could have got a little bit further than this, like the 5.5 gigahertz. That's just not happening. So pretty decent little scores there. I'm going to go ahead and turn this off for the remainder of the video, as I'm sure you just love hearing me yell over some air conditioners running here. I'll turn this stuff off. A lot of condensation going on over here. A lot of... Anyways, so I'm sure a much more methodical person would have thought of all of this stuff, but the appropriate stuff, rather than just diving into it and then thinking, holy geez, I need this or that, better go to the store, better go to Amazon, I need a better pump. And if I'm really going to be serious about this, I think it's going to probably cost about $300-400 total. I'm into it for about $200 now, especially with the switchings of the fluids and the air conditioner that I broke and all that stuff. But I would like to get a kind of more permanent situation going for this. So large diameter pipes, better pump, filtration on the pump that, you know, because I can clean up that rat, I'm going to get rid of this fluid, get rid of some of that sediment floating around in the fluid. But ultimately, I believe, because I'm putting an old 2-year-old air conditioner's cold side into the fluid, there's always going to be something that's going to get into the microfins. And then a fluid that's a little bit more you know, thin at colder temperatures is probably something. Maybe the washer fluid would be better for that. But I'll get this all buttoned up, and I'll make small improvements as I go. I'm not going to give up on this. I broke an air conditioner to do it, so, I mean, why would I? But all in all, I think this was a minor success. After 2 days of, I believed I was just going to be making a fail video. I actually got it to run. I actually got my 7820X to go about 400 megahertz faster than it does with conventional cooling and liquid metal and stuff like that. I already had that thing on the brink of, like, you know, it's such a hot CPU. I don't know how anyone cools any of the 10, 12, 14, 18 core processors in the X299 lineup. They're so damn hot. I guess with liquid nitrogen, which is much more efficient than this. But that's a whole other thing that I'd like to get into eventually. So I'm at Watch Timmy Joe Instagram and Twitter. I want to thank Gambias for sponsoring this video because I spent so much money. All of that sponsorship money has pretty much been taken up. Anyways, and thank to everyone on Patreon with your continued support. And if you want to check out the doobly-doo, I've been posting some, you know, little videos, some update videos that you wouldn't get on YouTube to kind of quench the thirst of the people looking for videos and stuff like that. You get access to the Discord server. We talk about games. We talk about, you know, you can show me what your system looks like, stuff like that. I consider the chiller to be, oh my God, a mild success, finally. 5.2 gigahertz on a 7820X. That's nothing to scoff at, but those scores, they're like Ryzen 3700X overclocked on water, you know, on just regular old AIO performance, which is not 4.3 gigahertz. We're like 900 megahertz faster, and we're still a little bit slower. So I can't believe how bad the CPU is. It's a little bit faster in gaming for some reason to do with the architectures. But at Watch Timmy Joe Instagram and Twitter. This won't be the last time you see the chiller, and I thank you very much for watching. And please don't hate me for how ghetto this was. And if you have suggestions on pumps, high flow pumps for this, or a fluid to use, I'm going to try the windshield washing fluid next. I'll see you guys later. Thanks for watching. Woo!